What's up, everybody? Hope everybody's having a great weekend. You're in another episode of the Bodacious Rant. I'm saying you're in it because you guys are watching us. You're soaking stuff visually and audio and all kinds of feelings. Hopefully you guys can feel as if you're in the room with us, not in a creepy way, or at the same time. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe it's,
or it's like and we're in your headphones, and we are in you, in a way, if you think about it.
Yes, that does sound a little perverse, but you know what? I respect that, Bern. That's a great way to think. You know what's also pretty perverse? Toxic relationships. And we're talking about a movie I think encapsulates it in a comedic way, probably a little too comedic, because it's actually a real issue, like toxicity and stuff with people and all that. But we're talking about the newest Nick Cage movie, Renfield, which is about Dracula and his assistant Renfield living in the modern times, and Renfield kind of navigating those feelings on thinking about his relationship with Dracula and maybe all the negative things about it. And this just came out this last week, so we're doing a non-spoiler review as always, because we don't want to spoil it for you guys. So please, before we started, do not forget to give us a like, ring the bell, and of course subscribe. We do appreciate it, and want to keep everybody coming back, keep everybody nice and listening and everything. So we appreciate it, guys. So this is, like I said, it's a pretty decently short movie. I think this movie would have been perfect for Valentine's Day, in all honesty. I'm surprised they didn't try and release it around that time, but most movies rarely ever release around the seasons they should be in. Like most horror movies never really come out in October. Christmas movies always come out like a month or two early. So it's weird.
Yeah, you would think this would be that's a good call on the Valentine's Day thing, because I thought initially this would be a good October fall movie. It's weird that it released at the beginning of the year, but that call there, I mean, that makes sense too, considering what the movie's about.
I mean, it's not a good way of Valentine's, because Valentine's supposed to be the celebration of love and being there for each other. This is just a complete opposite. I will say Nick Cage was a great Dracula, so comedic, but also pretty creepy. He had some really good moments, which I think I'm still riding the high of my favorite Nick Cage movie last year, with the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, starring him essentially as him. So I thought he was great. He rode that really well. And then Nick Holt, he's hit and miss for me. Sometimes I really like him in movies, and then there are other times I just can't stand him. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's his weird face. He's a handsome guy, don't get me wrong, but
in terms of the characters he plays, or just his acting? Because I've liked him in pretty much everything he's been in, but yeah, it seems like he doesn't get a lot of the bigger roles, obviously. But with his work here and in last year's The Menu, I thought he's been taking a lot of interesting roles lately, and so that's kind of cool, I think.
I think it's just a handful of movies I just can't stand him in. I think it's Warm Bodies. I don't know if it's necessarily the acting. I think it's more of the characters he embodies, and he does that. I think that's probably what it is. Because other than that, yeah, I liked him in The Menu. Again, total asshole in that movie. I loved him as a young, what's Beast? Oh, Dr. Hank McCoy. I liked him in the prequel X-Men movies. So he's a good actor. Don't get me wrong. There's some characters I just genuinely can't stand him being. But also, this also had Awkwafina. I think she's the third biggest star in this movie, and I don't know if it's just watching Nora from Queens, but now I just see her as Nora. It's hard to see her as another person, and that's kind of a good thing and bad thing, because I love how funny she is in that show, but in the movie it was a little hard to buy into it, because she's a police officer in the movie, so that's the only thing, but I still enjoy it. What did you think of this movie, Bern?
I mean, this movie was a lot of fun. It was definitely what the trailers made it out to be, which was this sort of dark comedy, relationship drama between Dracula and his familiar. So that in and of itself is just a very interesting and unique and fun concept. Looking into it, I saw that the original idea of this movie, the first initial draft was actually written by Robert Kirkman, and for those who don't know that, that's the person who created The Walking Dead and Invincible. So and thinking about the movie now, with that framework, it's yeah, I could kind of see a lot of comic book influence in here, which is kind of interesting. So that was pretty cool. And the director Chris McKay, he was a big person behind the more recent Lego movies. He did direct the Tomorrow War, which I thought was It was all right. Like it was a little bit too much going
It
on in
was
that
dumb.
movie. Yeah, it was pretty bit dumb. But more recently, he did help in writing the story of the Dungeons and Dragons movie. So he's a very unique voice, and you can definitely see the work of those two guys in particular on screen. But yeah, overall, this was it's a pretty fun movie. Like you said, it was relatively short. Like there wasn't really too much to it. But, the central premise of itself is very fun. I do think that the subplots of the movie kind of I don't know, they feel like a little bit irrelevant considering like a lot of things that happen, or at least half baked. Like this very much feels like a first or second draft in terms of those storylines and fleshing those out. But I mean, the actors here are having a lot of fun, and like you mentioned, Nick Cage is really great. Very interesting take on Dracula. A little bit of a nod to the older Dracula movies, and Nicholas Hoult, as I mentioned before, like I think he's been taking some fun and interesting roles that you wouldn't expect like an actor like him to do. And Ben Schwartz was also in this one too, and he was pretty hilarious.
He's always
Had a
going to
lot
be
of the
John
big-
Ralphio to me as well.
Yeah, he's always going to be him. I'm not going to be able to see him as anything else. Even listening to his voice in Sonic, it's like, that's John Ralphio. That's not Sonic. But everyone's having a great time here. The action is very fun and creative, and can get pretty gory. So this is definitely not for the faint of heart, I don't think. But overall, yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on everything, especially just because the plot at times will seem pretty uneven. Like, we're focusing on this, but then, oh, there's this going on, and then there's this going on. So you definitely felt like they just kind of shoehorned some stuff in just to make it feel more of a movie. Maybe they just didn't have the best ideas for it. But in that, I still enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. There were some crazy cool action scenes in it randomly. So that was an interesting thing from a movie like this because, with horror, there's not always like action like what you would expect in this movie. But having said that, I'm gonna give this movie a 3 out of 5, just because again, Nick Cage, Nicholas Hoult, the two Nicks really, they anchored this movie down, and I think they portrayed the perfect dynamic of a toxic relationship, and especially I think it's best that they're doing it like. It's funny, I was telling you about this after, but it's kind of the year of Dracula because we have this movie, and then they just recently announced The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which, if you know Dracula's story, it's not going to end well at all for those people on that ship. But other than that, yeah, that's my rating. What would you rate this burden of ratings?
I'm in between like a 2 and a 3 just because, what works really works and what doesn't is just kind of, it feels like it was there to kind of pad out the movie. But considering, the movie, I wasn't going in with like crazy expectations, and I don't think anyone who's going to go in watching this movie is going to have those either. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3 out of 5. It was fun. It was a short time. It's a nice change of pace for a lot of the movies that have come out recently. This is very different from those. But it's kind of funny. Like I do enjoy that Universal is doing this with its properties. Like I know a few years ago they were trying to do a whole MCU style dark universe thing that's like a big old connected monster movie universe. But I think with movies like this one, yeah,
That's what
with
happens.
movies like that did not go off the ground at all. Like talk about putting the cart before the horse, like on that thing. But now that they've pivoted, we got movies like this, which is fun, and The Invisible Man, which came out a few years ago, which was awesome. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they do with their Universal monster stuff. If they're gonna do things like this in Invisible Man, I'm interested because they're giving creators the autonomy to take some creative swings with these characters. And I think, these characters being around in movies for a long time, let's let people give their takes on it. And this was certainly a take, that's for sure.
Oh man, it was such a joyous take on it, and I'm glad the way it portrayed Dracula in this one. I think it was actually pretty accurate to how it would be.
Probably.
But other than that, my two favorite movies in theaters out right now are John Wick Chapter 4 and Air. So I can't wait for those to release on digital / Blu-ray, 4K, whatever 4K is considered. But doesn't matter. Everyone, what did you think of this movie? Whoever saw it this last weekend, did you love it? Were you bored by it? Did it scare you at all? Because there were some interesting parts in it. Or, were you just like, it was okay. We'd love to know in the comments to keep that going. Mando is finishing up this week, so stay tuned for that. And we also got a couple movies I'm really excited for. Evil Dead Rise and Guy Ritchie's The
Yeah.
Covenant. I know his last movie, I never saw it, but I know ratings wise, Operation Fortune wasn't so hot. So I'm hoping this one can kind of pick it back up for him. But stay tuned for all those reviews, everyone, and of course, stay bodacious and keep on Rant for the both of us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.